Hello, third graders. We're going to begin our Bible time with our devotion. Our devotion is called Don't Borrow Worries. And our Bible verse is from John 14, verse 27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Whenever your mind gets stuck on a problem, bring it to me and thank me for it. Ask me to show you my way of handling it. When you do this, your mind is freed and the problem is robbed of its power to make you worry. Together we will deal with your problem, either facing it right now or putting it aside for later. You see, many of the worries that tangle up your mind today are actually ones that you have borrowed from tomorrow. Don't waste time worrying about whether or not you will make the team next year, or pass the class next semester, or even what you will do this weekend. Give those borrowed worries to me, and let me put them in the future where they belong. Leave them there, out of sight, and I will replace them with my peace. So Jesus is reminding us that we shouldn't be worrying about tomorrow. We shouldn't be worrying about things to come, that we should just trust in Him and let Him give us peace. So let's remember that as you walk through your day and walk through your week this week. All right, our story, we continue with Moses and the Israelites. We talked last week about how the people again were grumbling and complaining and not trusting in God. And God had allowed these snakes to go into the camp. And he had, again, Moses had begged the Lord to have mercy on his people. And God told Moses to put a bronze snake on like a cross figure. And the people were to look at it and to be saved. And that was something to come later in the New Testament. We know that Jesus was put on the cross to save our sins. So in the Old Testament, we learned about how this snake on the cross saved the people from dying, just as Jesus saves us from our sins and gives us life eternal through his death and resurrection. We're going to continue with Moses, and we learn today about the death of Moses and also who becomes the new leader. So I'm going to read to you today out of a Bible story book, and our story is called Farewell and the Death of Moses. Moses, the faithful servant of God, had grown old, and the time of his death was near. In the face of many hardships and difficulties, he had brought the people of Israel all the way from Egypt to the very border of the land of Canaan. Only the Jordan River separated Moses from the land that he had tried to reach for 40 years. Remember, the people had been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. As he looked west across the river, he could see the land that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, from the northern boundary to the southern boundary and as far west as the Mediterranean Sea. Oh, how he longed to enter the promised land. But this was not to be, because Moses had failed to honor God at Meribah when he struck the rock to bring forth water. Instead of just speaking to it, the Lord would not permit him to cross the border. He told Moses that he would have to die where he was. We learned about that last week when Moses had disobeyed God by striking the rock instead of speaking to it. Moses pleaded earnestly with the Lord, begging for permission to enter Canaan. Let me go over, he said, and see the fine land on the other side of the Jordan, those beautiful hills in Lebanon. But the Lord said, do not speak to me any more about this matter. You will not cross the Jordan. Joshua will cross it, and he will divide the land among the people of Israel. Moses did not complain when he heard this, but humbly submitted to the will of God. However, he was concerned about the welfare of the Israelites after his death. With a firm, brave, careful man of faith to lead them, they would be like sheep without a shepherd. They would turn away from God, and then they would be overpowered by the nations around them. Moses therefore asked God to appoint someone to take his place. The Lord answered him, saying, take Joshua, a man who is filled with the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. Have him stand before Eleazar the priest and before all the people. Make him their leader in their sight. So God was telling Moses to take Joshua as the next leader. Joshua was a man of faith, an experienced leader, and a good soldier. When Moses laid his hand on him, he set him apart as the one whom God had appointed to lead his people. Knowing that his death was near, Moses called the Israelites together so that he might speak to them about a number of important matters. He addressed the people 3 times. In the first address, Moses related the outstanding things that happened during the 40 years of wandering in the desert, calling to mind especially God's merciful guidance and protection. Then Moses earnestly warned the people not to forget the Lord nor the covenant they had made with him. If they would keep the commandments, Moses said, they would have peace and prosperity in Canaan. Then next time Moses addressed the people, he repeated the words of the covenant, or the 10 Commandments, and he earnestly admonished the people to keep the commandments in mind at all times and to teach them diligently to their children. If they would obey the Lord, Moses said they would enjoy his richest blessings. They would live peacefully in their cities, and no enemy would be allowed to harm them. They would have plentiful harvest, and the blessing of God would rest on everything they did. But if they did not obey the Lord, their crops would be poor, and they would suffer from trouble, sorrow, and sickness. Besides, enemies would plunder their cities and lead their children away as captives to foreign lands. Moses also impressed on the people that their God would not allow them to worship any god other than himself. Therefore, he warned them against becoming friendly with the heathen tribes living in Canaan, lest by associating with them they would become idol worshippers also. Furthermore, Moses told the people how they should worship the Lord and explained the rules according to which they were to live in Canaan. He also warned the people not to listen to the false prophets who would arise among them. Then he prophesied the coming of the prophet to whom everyone should listen, the Son of God. Moses began his last address by saying to the people, I am 120 years old today. The Lord said to me, you shall not go over the Jordan. The Lord himself will go over ahead of you. He will destroy the nations in Canaan so that you will be able to take their land. Joshua will lead you over the Jordan. Then the Lord said to Moses, the time has come when you must die. Call Joshua and go with him to the tabernacle, that I may make him the leader of the people. Moses and Joshua went to the tabernacle. There the Lord appeared in a pillar of cloud. He said to Joshua, be strong and of good courage, for you will bring the Israelites into the land that I solemnly swore to give them. I will be with you. With these words, God sent Joshua apart as the leader of the Israelite people. The very same day, the Lord said to Moses, go up to Mount Nebo and see the land of Canaan. Then you shall die on the mountain. After blessing the people, Moses went to the top of Mount Nebo. From this point, the Lord showed him Canaan and said, this is the land which I promised to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, when I said I will give it to your descendants. When Moses had seen Canaan, he died, and the Lord buried him. Exactly where the Lord buried him, no one knows. Although Moses was 120 years old, his eyesight was still good and his body strong. Saddened by the death of their leader, the people of Israel wept and mourned for Moses 30 days. Immediately after his death, Joshua took charge of the people. They accepted him as their leader and did what he commanded. The Israelites never had another prophet as great as Moses. No other prophet knew God as intimately as he did. No other prophet was able to do the signs and miracles that he did before Pharaoh and before the people of Israel. No other prophet saw God face to face.